Yo, what's going on, family? Joseph here, Flights and Feelings. Welcome back to this channel where we're exploring leaving Christian faith, what that looks like. That's mostly what this channel's about. And then it's like, you'll see me doing live reactions to pop the balloon. Like, I'm very serious and unserious at the same time. And I think I like that. I like the balance. But for those of you who are not familiar, on this channel, I have been exploring what it's like to be on a personal and even public scale of leaving Christian faith. And some of you are just now, chiming in again. And you're like, why are you still talking? Is he still talking about this? He's still talking about this? And my question is to you, you still watching me? Like, what? You don't have to actually watch. Like, I don't know why you're still following. Like, no one's holding you hostage. There are literally billions of other places you can be on the internet. And you keep choosing to come here. So it's saying less about me and more about you. Clearly something is interesting to you. So yes, I'm still talking about it. I just think that's hilarious when people say that. I'm like, yeah, you realize, like, you don't have to, right? You know that, right? Like, you don't have to do that. You don't have to watch me. So I was a, public facing Christian, an artist, speaker, poet, traveled around, toured and stuff, and sort of really made a name and a living. A lot of y'all know the story already of being a Christian, gained a lot of followers online from that, a lot of family, was heavily involved in my local church, wherever city I was in. And so, Christianity was I was not a nominal Christian, this definitely consumed my life. And so this channel is like, making sense of that experience and then making sense of the transition out of that and then making sense of life now. And to give context to what I'm about to say in this video, a lot of Christians assume, I don't know why, because I've literally never said this, ever. Find the clip where I say this. I've never said it. A lot of people assume that I'm an atheist. I'm not an atheist. I think people want to assume I'm an atheist because it makes their arguments simpler. Like, if I've noticed that a lot of apologetic arguments are catered towards atheists. And I get that they can be some of the most vocal, but they also are the vocal minority. Like, if you look at the actual percentage of people who identify as Christian, at least in the United States, the number is crazy small. It's like 2%. I forget the exact number off the top of my head, but let's just Google it, Joe, huh? What percentage of Americans are not obese, atheist? It's like 4%. Agnostics are 5%. So I'm more likely to be an agnostic than I am an atheist. There is a rise of the non-religious, the nons, or none, a religious none, meaning they may be spiritual or just unaffiliated with that's a huge group right now. They make up the largest single group in America at the time of this recording. And that can mean a lot of different things. And I just think that it's a weird thing to just automatically assume that someone says they're not a Christian, so they must be an atheist. I'm not an atheist. I try to shy away from labels, but I think labels are sometimes helpful, at least to have some sort of coherent conversation where you can at least nail somebody down and them not, try to slide everywhere. But at the same time, I see how also limiting they can be. But for the sake of this conversation, just for the sake of this conversation, I will label myself an agnostic. And simply that, and I think in a very true sense of the word, like, I'm open to religious experience. I'm open to the idea of God, to the experience of God, whatever that may mean. I don't think that you can rationally prove his or her or their existence, like hard proof. I think that's the concept of faith, that there is not proof. Faith is the substance of things hoped for and the evidence not seen. But I also think the opposite. I don't think you can rationally prove there is no God. No one can really make an argument that there is no God. You can only make inferences. You can make reasonable conclusions, or, this could likely mean this or whatever. But I don't think you can make a hard intellectual, like, we know for a fact there is no God, or we know for a fact there is a God. It's highly existential. And that's okay. I'm totally okay with that. I do believe that whatever experience you have, it's going to come down to the individual. And so with that being said, I am agnostic for the sake of this conversation. I'm agnostic. And yet with that, with the openness to religious experience, while also realizing a lot of the hurdles that religion has to overcome intellectually, it doesn't write it off completely. And I think that there are a lot of huge benefits to prayer. And I said this in my last video, what I've learned since leaving Christian faith. And I said that even if you leave Christian faith, prayer, among other rituals, is something that you should keep in your daily practice. And I truly believe that. I've seen the benefits of that. My heart, my mind, my soul has greatly benefited from taking time to pray on a regular basis. It started off as just a whim, something that, I just felt the inclination. I mean, call it residual. What is it called? Vestigial. From an evolutionary term, like, we have vestigial organs or vestigial reflexes that our species doesn't really use anymore, but like maybe one of our old ancestors used it at one point and it kind of stuck in the DNA. Kind of like it's weird. Not everybody has this, but I have like a reflex where if I'm in a quiet parking lot, not loud, but a quiet place, and it's dark and it's just me, and I hear a soft sound, not a loud sound. Loud sound would startle you, but a soft sound, like a ruffling in the trash can or something. My ears literally like draw back like another type of mammal. So I kind of see prayer that way. It was starting off as just like a reflex, like, I just feel the need to pray. It was such a part of my life, and it felt good. So I'm going to continue to do it. And I think that prayer, maybe this would be my first main point, prayer at its baseline, take away all the spiritual aspects of it, wherever you land on the spectrum when it comes to faith. Prayer at its most base level is a type of meditation. It's a pausing, it's a break away from interacting with the outside world. It's a pausing of anything else. That's why I appreciate the idea of closing your eyes, that you're trying to shut off as much of your senses to the external world to sort of draw inward. And at a base level, meditation is extremely helpful to all. But specifically, a type of verbal meditation. I think that's what prayer could be called. For me, I think I just do better at verbal processing. And I've done some of my best thinking as I'm sort of talking through it. Even like in these videos, sometimes I don't really know where this video is going to go. And then you're like, you know what? That was a good idea. Like last video, I had the phrase theological hoe phase. And that wasn't pre-thought of. That happened in the moment. That was a good processing. Like, yeah, that is a good connection. We should go through a theological hoe phase. I'm going to put that on a shirt. But, and I think verbal processing is good because it sort of ends the ruminating. So a lot of anxiety and depression often happens from us, people like myself, who want to overthink everything. But the problem is it's not necessarily overthinking as it is a bad way of thinking. Because if you stay in your brain about it, rather than writing it down or verbalizing it, getting it out, you don't see the thought to its conclusion. You start with the problem and then end up with a solution, even if the solution is just a change in your disposition, a change in your feeling or your response to the thing that is worrying you. But if you don't get it out verbally or in written form, which I'm a huge advocate for journaling, and writing things out, having a planner, having a physical planner. Mine is not, it's on the table somewhere. It's super helpful to just write it out or say it out loud and talk through that thing, because otherwise what happens is your thoughts stay in a certain loop. You have one thought that triggers this thought and triggers that thought, and it's like you get worried about that and you're back at square one. You keep doing this thought loop where you never quite get out of it. And when you verbally process something, say those thoughts out loud, question yourself out loud. I even literally ask myself questions, pause, ask a question, think about a legitimate answer to it. As you verbalize it, now you have real tangible steps that you can take towards that thing. Even if the thing is, the tangible step is, I can't do anything about this. If you're worried about something and you can do something about it, stop worrying and do something about it. If you're worrying about something and you can't do anything about it, well, then you don't have anything to worry about it. Practically speaking, there's nothing else for you to do. So verbalizing it in a meditative sense or in a written, verbalizing it or writing it out in a meditative process and practice helps you to get out of the loop of things. It also helps you to dive a little deeper. I think the problem with overthinking only in your head, this sort of meta thinking about thinking, and you're thinking about your thoughts and you're thinking about your depression and you're depressed about your depression, you're anxious about your anxiety. It just all jumbles up. The problem with that thing is that it oftentimes stays on the surface level. No matter how deep you think you are, you're not getting to the root of the issue if it's only in your brain. For me, I've learned this as a practice. For me, I can't get to the root of the thing by simply thinking about it. I have to think, say something out loud. I may say words that I probably wouldn't have thought. So I don't know the science behind thinking while talking versus thinking while not talking. I'm sure there's a bunch of research papers on that somewhere. I need to go look it up. But it is a different type of mental processing to actually have to write something out or say something out loud in a way that is coherent and in complete sentences. And you do that in prayer. As you externalize those thoughts at a base level to yourself. So before I even got about who I pray to and what results you're expecting in the end or whatever, and what do you think the actual metaphysical powers of prayer are, before we even get into any of that, it's just on a base level. When you pray, you are able to get to the root of things. I'm old enough to remember computers that had, every computer now has a solid state drive, meaning there's no moving parts where the memory is held. And they work very differently than hard drives before them. I forget the name of the hard drives now, but I remember on my Windows computer that every now and then, if your computer was running really slow, you had to do what you call defragmentation. And essentially, and I could be explaining this, I think I'm for the most part on par. Computer engineers, scientists, or whatever, correct me. Essentially, every time you save something on the computer, oftentimes, if I have a video file, you would think the video file is all in one place on the hard drive, when in fact, the computer is actually saving bits of it in many different parts. It's whatever's the free space that's available. So say, for instance, I save something here, and then I save a bunch of things. And so now I have like this sort of library. Think of it like a row of books on a bookshelf. Now I just put all the books there. Now say I want to take 3 books out. Okay. I have 3 books. I take that book out. I take those 3 books out. Now I have a gap in the bookshelf. Got some books over here, a gap, and more books. Now I buy some more books, some new information, some new data, a new file that I'm saving onto the computer. Well, instead of, if there's not enough space to fit all the new data in that gap, it'll fit some of it in that gap, and then the other part it'll put wherever the next free space is. So the problem with that is, if you think about it in terms of books, you've got a partial book here, part of the book is here, and then it cuts the book in half and puts it over here, and then it puts it in other. It just keeps doing that over and over. Every time you delete something and add something new, it just puts it in wherever the free space is. And so now all of your data on the hard drive is fragmented. It's scattered in many different places. And so the reason why the computer starts to run slower or opening up new files, is because it's trying to grab all the information. It's trying to find all the information in scattered places on the hard drive and then bring it together in the program that you're trying to run it on, whether it's a video, a Word document, or whatever. That file could be scattered in many different places. So what you would do is you run a defragmenting process, and it takes a long time, and the computer searches through all the files that you have and tries to put all the files, the single files, together so that now it only has to go to one place to get the one file versus 15 different places. It scans it and then puts them in order. It organizes and sort of recalibrates. And I really think that's a great analogy for me, for what prayer does, where you sit and you analyze where everything is at, because you've got so many thoughts. You got family over here, you got money over here, you got career over here, you got love life over here, you got politics, you got race, you've got city issues, you've got your health, your physical health. All those things are like scattered everywhere, and they're all kind of next to each other, and you're thinking about them, especially if you have, you're on ADHD or something like that. Like these thoughts are coming on the heels of one another, and they're scattered, completely different categories, scattered all over the place. And prayer has helped me to take those things and put them where they are. We're not going to think about everything. We're going to think about money. I'm going to pray about money. I'm not going to pray about the world, politics, my health, my family, my faith, whatever. We're going to just pray about this thing. We're going to hone in on this thing here. And let's have some serious thoughts about this thing. And that kind of brings me to my next point about why prayer is so important, because then it also brings to the surface what is actually most important to you. Because unless you're, especially on this side as an agnostic, I don't pray because I have to anymore. I prayed when I didn't have to as a Christian. And oftentimes, if we're being honest, y'all pray because you're at church. That's what you do. You pray at church, or you saw an Instagram post that made you feel guilty about praying. And so you prayed, and you often feel guilty about not praying enough. I don't have those feelings anymore. I pray because I want to. And so when you pray because you want to, then you only going to pray what you think is worth praying for. And that can be a positive or negative revelation to you. It may reveal to you that the things that are really important to you, you thought you had really serious things that were important to you. And then you realize, like, all I want to pray about is money. That's all I care about is money. Or all I care about is love life. Or all I care about is, and all the things that you say you're concerned about on social media and to your friends, they never show up in your prayers. So are they really that important? If you don't have a meditative moment, or especially if you're religious, if you don't take those things that you say are so important to the one you consider the most important being, you're only taking selfish desires to prayer. You're not actually having a burning desire to pray about things. So prayer reveals to you what's most important to you. And that can be it's all going to be a good revelation at the end of the day. At least now it's good that it's been revealed to you that you pray about things that are not all that significant. So it brings to light what's most important, and then it helps defragment that stuff. It helps put them in the right order. And let's have complete thoughts about this one particular subject. And let's think this thing to the end. And for me, I've noticed that in those type of prayer moments in the morning, something really captures my attention, and it's hard to simply pray about one thing for 2 minutes and move on to the next. If it's really important, you sit with it. And then the next point is, after you start defragmenting, bring to the surface what is most important, and you have complete thoughts about those things, the complete thoughts, the benefit of having complete thoughts, verbalized or even written thoughts about things that are most important to you, now that they've been defragmented, they've been unscattered, they've been collected, and you can kind of see it in a much more concise way through your words. Now you can have very profound revelations, extremely profound revelations that will oftentimes bring you to tears, and they've brought me to tears. As the thing that's been bothering you, you just keep going on about your day. It's in the back of your mind. It's going on all the time, and it's worrying you and it's weighing you down, or even it's making you excited, but you haven't even had time to pray about the thing that you're excited about, to sift through why you're excited about it and what that thing means to you. Stop. Have a meditative moment. And let me pause and just say that I know meditation is a very popular thing, meaning, in today's time where it's like sometimes people see meditation as simply sitting and pausing and being quiet, which that's great. And that's worked well for me too. Prayer has just worked better. It's been a better thing. I will have quiet moments before prayer. I think it's sort of preparing. It's almost like warming up for this activity. Like, I do breathing exercises, having an anchor to count on and stuff like that. And just sitting still and preparing my mind to then start to pray. And so from that, I've gained some really, really special revelations about myself that allows me to take more actions that are consistent with what I say my desires are. And I'm able to see where the inconsistency lies, where I say I've been saying this thing and I've been doing another thing, and prayer again helps defragment that, and to say, okay, this is what you say you want to do, and you say it in passing, but let's take a moment to sit and really think about this thing. And this, for me, I think is where it sort of then starts to leap from the rational. I think I've given a lot of rational explanations into the sort of existential experience for me, where the tears come and the wave of emotions, the shudders of the body, the sort of spiritual ecstasy, all that stuff has often happened in prayer. A passage in the Bible that I often think of is, and I bring it up on this channel a few times too, is Elijah, where he, he's on the run from God, or not from God, but from his persecutors, and he's suicidal. He's like, yo, kill me on this tree when I go to sleep. Like, don't let me wake up, XYZ. And he's looking for the presence of God. I might be butchering the story. I'm, for the most part, on point. I'm not a student of the Bible like that these days. I just rely on memory. And he looks for God in the wind, and God was not in the wind. He looks for God in the earthquake. There's a big earthquake, but God was not in the earthquake. He looks for God in a big fire, but God was not in the fire. God was in the still, small voice. And oftentimes Christians have asked me, well, have you had a real experience with God? And I'm reluctant to even put a label on that. I don't think I need to. But I think I get what they're saying to some degree, and it may sound limiting in the way that I explained it for some. But have you had a transformative experience, transcendent experience that goes beyond your rationale, that goes beyond the logic, that really captures your mind, heart, affections, emotions, that really can't be mediated in the rational realm at a base level. But then we take that, I think that's a great way to explain it, but then we take that and think that the only way to get that is through the fire, the earthquake, or the wind, these very eventful moments, these whether it be like hearing the audible voice of God, or seeing a spirit, or having some sort of external like moment, the shouting, the stuff we see in church services, having visions, having dreams, all those things. We've limited the experience of God. And I'm saying this confidently as an agnostic. I'm saying this to the religious, that we've limited the meaning of what it means to have a transformative spiritual experience to these things that are extremely external and extremely loud, extremely maybe chaotic, or at least very attention grabbing, versus being able to have transformative, transcendent experiences in the quiet. And I think that I used to allow Christians, even as a Christian, even after Christian, I used to allow Christians to sort of question whether or not I had those moments, because I don't have a lot of moments where I had like a prophecy come true or XYZ or things that I can point to. Oftentimes those moments, for me, and just maybe it's just my personal disposition, have happened in quiet, in the consistency of coming to a thing, coming to a place, coming to a behavior, a practice like prayer or reading, coming to that thing over and over again. And if you have an immature mind, the last thing I just said was like, oh, whoa, what are you trying to say? And I think actually, without being inappropriate, I think that's actually a great analogy. I think God in the Bible oftentimes have made allegory to sex in his relationship to his people. In Israel, when he tells them they were theological hoes. That's what he called them. He was like, I think it's in Ezekiel, he said, you've spread your legs to every passerby. They were worshiping false gods. And he was like, you've been spreading your legs, you whore. Like that's, and he's like, you've been practicing infidelity. You've been having spiritual sex with other gods. And so I don't think it's even inappropriate for a Christian to see, or even immature to see it as a spiritual relationship as having sexual innuendos or sexual connotation. And so even in that, we think through distorted views of sex and maybe stuff we've seen online, or even hypermasculinity, all those things. People may assume that having great sex is the loud, is the boisterous things, is the trying to do it all at once, rather than the subtle, consistent. You find the spot, and you just don't go super crazy. Don't try to pound and all that stuff, bro. Take your time, find it. She'll let you know, and you just keep doing that thing. Just be consistent. Keep coming to the same spot every single time. And that's where the revelation, the sexual revelation happens. The ecstasy moment, the aha moment comes from just be consistent. Don't try to, that's cool. It's fun to do all the extra boisterous stuff. But if you want to make sure that and same for women, if you want to make sure that they reach spiritual, sexual ecstasy, sexual revelation, the climax moment, oftentimes it's not in the loud and the boisterous. It's in the quiet, it's in the slow, and it's in the consistent. And just do the thing. Have fun. All other things are all, on the table as well. But at the end of the day, you want to be sure about it, be consistent. And so for spiritual ecstasy, I found that that idea, that philosophy to be just as true, that if you want to have transcendent moments, wherever you lie at on the spiritual spectrum, yes, sure, you can get those things through shrooms and other, drugs, and you can try all these different things to try to have these extremely loud or chaotic or like big moments of revelation. But oftentimes, maybe you should consider just being consistent in something as small and as quiet as prayer, where you have these revelations, where you keep coming back to the same thing, the same place over and over and over again, and you reach a spiritual climax on a quite regular basis without any need for external stimuli. The music, the loud, the prophecies, the visions, all those things, like, just be consistent. And so I think, I moved from the rational to the slightly existential, and then we could talk about the philosophical implications of it, or the spiritual implications of that. Like, who are you praying to, and what are you expecting out of that? I don't really expect anything to happen out of prayer other than what's happening in the present, than what's happening to me now in that moment. And I quite enjoy that. But I will say that, as I've sort of mentioned in my last video, prayer is the thing you do when your highest abilities don't match your highest hopes. Prayer is what you do when your highest abilities cannot match your highest hopes. And when you have high hopes for yourself, you have high hopes for your family, your friends, your children, your wife, your husband, your nation, and you start to realize just how inadequate your ability is to match those highest dreams. Like, you may be a very talented person, a very intelligent person, and you actually can accomplish a lot of great things on your own. And then through prayer, through the first part of prayer, which is, defragmenting, elevating those things up to the surface, the deep things up to the surface to be analyzed and to be organized. And when you see just how little time you have to have any impact on those things that are greatly important to you, it's a very humbling experience. And you do have for me, speaking for myself, I do have an inclination to want to extend those desires to someone beyond myself, beyond the human ability. And, maybe call it hedging my bets, sure. But when I do pray, I say God, I say to all that is good, all that is worthwhile. I think that is a word that has stuck with me. I wrote it on my whiteboard for all that is worthwhile. Because I think oftentimes, and I have to think about if this is a fully all-encompassing description, but it is a pretty good description off the top of my head for now, that when we say we want to do something for God as a religious person, or when we're considering the things of is God real, and what do we do if God is real? And I think often what the deeper desire underneath that is that, or the deeper desire and the deeper understanding is that, one, life is extremely short, and we do have this innate desire to want to do things that are not wasteful of our energy, of our resources, of our thoughts. And we want to do something that is quote unquote worth it. You define what that is. I don't know if I can fully define what that is for you. Worthwhile. I just don't want what I'm doing to, like, for instance, if I, on a small scale, like if I ate really healthy and I worked out 7 times a week for an hour a day, every single day, it's really difficult. And I'm only doing it because there is something on the other side of that desire. Otherwise, this thing that I'm doing is not worthwhile. It's not worth, I can go do something else. So we're, with the myriad of options that we have to do with our time, we're like, I want to do the thing that is worth that time. And so take that working out analogy on a cosmic scale, at least on a lifelong scale. We're like, I want to be doing the things that make all this trouble worthwhile. And some people may become very nihilistic and think that there is no such thing as a worthwhile XYZ. Or like me, I think that meaning is very localized. Now, maybe I'll talk about that more in depth in another video, rather than it is cosmic or global. But whatever it is, you just don't want to be wasting your time. And I think God, the concept of God in some sense can be described as the thing that makes all the time worthwhile, because he, she, they are the ones that made time and whatever, however you want to describe it. So I pray to that thing, that one, that being, that energy, even if it is me. I said, man, I pray to all that is good and all that is worthwhile, even if that thing is me. I'm praying to that end and to that one. And if that one has any inclination, which I don't have any proof that they do, has any inclination, any disposition to want to help me in that process, by all means, I'll take all the help I can get. And right now, I think that's the best I can do. And so I think I've pretty much went over most of why I still pray. And I think that it's good to pray. No matter where you land on the spectrum, I'm sure you're familiar with studies out there that show that prayerful people are happy people. And I know that Christians would love to have or religious people like to have a monopoly on prayer. It's like, well, prayer doesn't do anything if it's not going to someone. You have that belief. That's for you. Hey, no qualms from me. I'm not here to argue with that. I'm talking to people who are on the other side. And even from just a purely naturalist, materialist perspective, if we're just evolved creatures, we have evolved to be religious. Somewhere around the cognitive revolution, I think it was 70,000 years ago, Homo sapiens came on the scene with the ability to live in a dual reality. And that has been great, absolutely great, and also terrible in a lot of ways. We've had the ability to see a thing as more than what meets the eye, and to have a story that goes around it, to create narrative around that. And that DNA is, it's all tangled up in us. And there's no detangling that, no matter how deep we get into postmodernism, how we get into deconstruction or whatever. I don't think you detangle, at least not for now. And I don't think I want to. I think the thing that makes me human is the DNA that makes me human. I don't want to live like a computer that doesn't have any feelings, that doesn't have any stories, that it's not just ones and zeros, but it's narratives, it's meanings, it's stories of how we're connected to other people, how we're connected to the earth, how we're connected to history or ancestors, how we're connected to the future, and what that means for us to do now. It could all be pointless But I just think you may think life is meaningless, but I think it's it's pretty meaningless to try to fight that truth about humanity. You can't shake it. It's another reason why I don't think religion is going to go anywhere for any time soon. I think that we may reinvent it. We may broaden its perspectives while also diving deeper. Like, I think people are becoming less and less religious, but then we're also seeing a growth of people who are becoming more and more fundamental, more and more conservative, and leaning deeper into fundamental belief. So that's an interesting dichotomy. But in any case, I don't think it's going anywhere. I don't think it should. I just think we should reimagine it deeply, what that means for a human to be human with these inclinations, and how do we live in a way that is consistent, that is open to genuine religious experience, while also not having to gaslight ourselves into being anti-intellectual or anti-science. So, yeah, that's prayer for the agnostic. I'm sure there's more to say about it, but I think I'll end the video here. So, like, comment, subscribe. Also, I want to say, some of you already know about it. I've just started up a Discord channel. I'll put the link in the description. And it's where you can ask more questions. I want to connect with people more regularly, as much as I can, through different platforms. And I started a Discord in pandemic, and it was amazing. And I wanted to make some caveats on it, some changes. I stopped it for a while, and I want to re-explore diving deeper with people who are in this audience, especially people on this channel who are not just here for music, as I am on my bigger channel, but they're just here because they're sorting through these things as well, and are open to these type of discussions without being antagonistic antagonistic, just open to disagreeing. But still open to having kind and loving conversations that, at the end of the day, assume that everyone here is human. So